Hey y'all, special edition of the Bearded Bros Golf Show, middle of the day, real stuff, kind of sneaking out on the lunch break, working from home today. Thought we'd hop on, about an hour ago, 2 hours ago, Zach Johnson live at PGA Frisco announcing his 6 captains picks for the Ryder Cup. Introductions, I'm Rod.
I'm Marcus.
So I don't know how many people are actually going to be able to join this, middle of the day deal, but I just wanted to talk about it. And, after watching the press conference, getting the picks, they announced them just straight out the gate. So there was no hesitation on that. It wasn't like a special rollout. They were on a Zoom call with some spotty coverage, and it was an interesting experience. I wasn't expecting that. So, let's just kind of roll down the picks and just talk about it a little bit. We're not going to hang too long on here, but just wanted to hit the high points while this is still fresh. So we have Sam Burns, and I'm just going to go in order of how they spoke to them during the press conference as well. Rickie Fowler, Brooks Koepka, Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, and Justin Thomas. And I wanted to add one thing in terms of their ranking on the Ryder Cup points. Sam Burns was at 12.
Yeah.
Rickie Fowler was at 13. Brooks Koepka was at 7. Colin Morikawa was at 10, Jordan Spieth was at 8, and Justin Thomas at 15. We'll get into Justin Thomas here heavily. But what about the conspiracy theory nuts and Brooks getting in there? What do you think?
Like we've talked about for the last 3, maybe 4 weeks, just me and you already knew like he should have got in, probably was going to get in. He's done the work to get in besides all the rest of the other hoopla and stuff in the background. I mean, at the end of the day, I think overall, though, I think there's nothing out of the norm for these 6 picks. The only one that I would even question would be Sam Burns. And even then, over a 2-year span, which is what the Ryder Cup is, he has won twice, and he's competed either in the Tour Championship or been close to it. So, again, he made it to the top 50 this year. He was in the championship last year. He won twice last year. He's still trending pretty well. And, again, he's a team guy. He's one of the homies. In a team environment where you're going to be needing chemistry, you're going to want to play off each other. You're going to want to play off the momentum of each other. You need guys like that, which is why I'm not mad at the JT pick at all. So regardless of what everybody has to say about it, when him and Jordan Spieth get together on the same team, going against each other, the blood is going to boil. The team is going to get up. They're going to play, and they're going to play well. So I don't see what the beef is with that. And everybody else that's in it is much deserved. I mean, it's just it's everybody's gonna be mad about it. I don't know why he's in the team. I don't know. Bro, he missed the top 70 by 1.
Yeah.
He was 71. You act like he wasn't trending back to where he was just playing. He made the moves. He made a little couple of swing changes. He'll be all right. And again, he's got 3 weeks to get ready for it, or 4 weeks or whatever before they fly over, get onto the course and stuff like that. So, again, I'm not seeing a big deal about it. My apologies for going off on a rant.
Like early, coming in hot and heavy. I'm not as keen on the JT pick as you are. And homeboy looked tired. He said he didn't sleep last night after getting the news about the pick, which showed. And then he continued to get a grilling. The chat was hot and heavy about JT. They were like just throwing out crazy, talking about they should have picked Chichi Rodriguez over JT, and all these kinds of just jokes were flying. The press was also grilling him, and a lot of the questions came to JT regarding his recent form. He did mention that he had taken 2 weeks off, didn't touch his clubs after getting eliminated from the FedEx Cup playoffs, and just, had really wanted to take a break. So, hopefully he's able to find his form. He will be playing in 2 weeks in the Fortinet. Hopefully just get to see him round the game back into shape and kind of silence the haters, because, if it doesn't go well, there's a lot on the line, and we know that's where people are going to direct their ire if he doesn't play well, at him and Zach Johnson. So we'll see how that shakes out long term. But that was the controversial pick. In addition to people, the internet thinks it knows everything. That there have been a lot of posts that just Brooks Koepka was not going to make it. As you said already, we said that he was going to make it. He was 7th on the list. It was well
Right.
deserved that he ended up on that stand, able to
He
play.
was
He was
5th
second
for
in
the
the Masters.
longest.
Yeah, exactly. And that's playing limited events, but he performed when he needed to. Second in the
Yep.
Masters, won the PGA at Oak Hill. He should have been in there. It really shouldn't even been a question. But of course,
Right.
people thought it was politics and BS. Clearly, they were able to put that aside. Maybe on the conspiracy theory side of things, they're like, "Oh, it's a bridge between Live, the Saudis, and the PGA Tour. Who cares? He's
Yeah.
in there." Kind of silence the crap about people lobbying for Bryson DeChambeau as well. But hey, we got Brooks, and kudos to who we're going to have in there. I think they're going to have a really strong team. Let's talk about, the other picks were pretty much predictable at this point. But
Right.
let's talk about who is excluded. And I do want to say one last thing about JT. The quote that Zach Johnson used is, "You don't leave JT at home." Um, you already talked about the connections with Spieth. They're bros. They grew up, in junior golf together.
Yeah.
Rickie Fowler's in that group as well. So you're going to probably see some mix and matching depending on how people are trending with them together. Some other, just connections with Sam Burns. You mentioned him possibly being on, the fringes of that. He's boys with Scottie Scheffler. And
Exactly.
so
All of these
there is a
people are
natural,
all homies.
yeah, there's a natural connection. But let's talk about some of the folks that got excluded and get your thoughts on those. And we'll talk about their rankings as well. The first
Yeah.
few, were ahead of people that got picked. So we have Cam Young. He was number 9. Keegan Bradley at number 11 on the Ryder Cup points. And kind of outsider, Denny McCarthy, slow play king. He was at number 14, and outside of the top picks was Lucas Glover at 16. So, maybe those first three names had a case, to get in. What do you think? Would you have substituted any of those? We talked about Keegan Bradley this last couple of weeks, and actually playing pretty well in the Tour Championship. Again, slow play, maybe that kind of maybe people don't like playing with him. What do you think was the factor in eliminating those three people and kind of not on the outskirts, Lucas Glover?
Yeah. So I think, I'm not even. So I think the thing to me is, first of all, Denny McCarthy never really had a chance. Lucas Glover, I think he had a
No.
chance just because, right? You know what I'm saying? Just being honest, Lucas Glover probably on the precipice. He had, and again, just like what we were saying last week, or he has one more hot week, one more just like, oh, is that? Ain't Lucas really like that? Then he might have. I think he might
Yeah.
have kind of like just slid in there like last pick type deal. But again, I think with the team environment, if nobody really gravitates towards Keegan Bradley besides Inside Trader, because that 2012 year, them boys went crazy, and I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
they was like 3-1, 3-0-1, something unreal, and they were just feeding off each other. Keegan Bradley doesn't have that on tour right now. He might have some outside, homies like that he plays with or gets his practice rounds in, but nobody on the Ryder Cup team like that's even worth mentioning. I think the only
Right.
one that I'm really kind of sad about, what I would say would be Cam Young. But again, when you're that quiet and that under the radar, despite how good and consistent you play and as big as you poke it out there, nobody's going to really know who you are. So when you got a guy like Zach Johnson that's still very relevant on the tour, still plays a lot of events and knows these guys hands in personally, maybe he just didn't have a good rapport with ZJ.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it comes down to. And then just kind of like off a tangent of that, again, Zach Johnson is still trying to be one of the guys. So all
Yeah.
these picks, the 6 that were confirmed and then the 6 that he picked are all people that he's buddy with. Look at the guys that he's picked. Even
Yeah.
Brooks. Even Brooks is me. People think he's standoffish. Brooks is one of the guys.
No. Brooks
Brooks is
is
one of
one
the
of those
homies.
guys. Yeah, there's never been a separation. You saw that at the Masters when first event back. After
Exactly.
last year's kind of slow play defections, that people were hanging around Brooks, and there was no animosity coming his way. He's just super
Brooks,
chill, and
DJ. Exactly.
yeah, from the outside, people may not like Brooks's mentality, but in the players' room, he gets the respect and he brings the game. He's not a bullshitter. Had he, had he talked crap about, golf being boring and slow
Right.
play and all this and didn't win, it would be a different story. But the fact that he backs it up seems like an amicable guy in the background. Yeah, I think you're 100% spot on. A lot of these guys are in Zach Johnson's phone. They talked about text messages going back and forth between he and certain players, especially JT. That was mentioned quite a few times by each of the guys. So it's very interesting to see how the buddy ball will come together, right? And I think
Yeah.
we've hit on this on the Sunday live show is that the European team is not going to be just like this cupcake and roll over. They're going to have to be able
Right.
to bring their best games when they make it over to Rome. Because it's not going to be a cakewalk, and just really thinking about it in subsequent days, since we had that initial conversation and kind of reevaluating that list.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a couple of weak links, it could get tight. And, we were thinking a couple of weeks ago, this is going to be a case, just roll them over, take them behind the woodshed. I don't think that is the case anymore. And so, again,
Right.
the decisions that were made today, if they don't pan out, there's going to be a lot of questions going forward. I can see like some U.S. soccer reevaluation of our Ryder Cup, you know, evaluation process, with Zach
Yeah.
Johnson had mentioned some technology stuff today and kind of saying that on the analytics side that the guys that were picked, their game fits this particular course. So we'll see if
Yeah.
that all that math pans out. We were just discussing, do they have stats like this on the golf side? And clearly they
Right.
do. So
And
yeah, man.
again,
I mean,
JT's one of the few players that's played the course they're playing. Not,
yeah,
I mean, again, so he's got a lay of the land, but I think really ultimately you got to go back to Paul Azinger's Ryder Cup in '08. He did pods, he had great chemistry, they all knew each other, but again, they knew each other. The chemistry was there. So regardless of if the talent was there, they were in each other's companies that they enjoyed each other, which makes the golf more enjoyable, which makes the golf more easy to be played and compete for each other. You're not just competing for you anymore. You're competing for a team. You're competing for your guys in the locker room that you're playing with. So again, I just think that's what kind of they're gravitating towards now. Just even back to 2021. 2021, they was buddy buddy. Don't get me wrong, the team was stacked, but they was all
yeah,
the bros. Again, just another team like that. So,
yeah,
that's how I'm seeing it. That's my standpoint. But
yeah. Got a
I
comment
see we
here
have a comment. Yeah.
from Mr. Lazar. I love Justin Thomas, but he has struggled to make cuts the last 6 to 9 months. Do you really want someone struggling with their game in the pressure cooker of the Ryder Cup? I think there's some credence to this. And the reason I say that is, we were talking about his swing change that he's been trying to make or swing modifications. You can tell he's been working on
Yeah.
some things. You mentioned that earlier on. That's not, like you said, under pressure, as Lazar said, is at the time that you want someone who is trying to rediscover some things. Yes, he's had 2 weeks off. Yes, he's going to get some tournament play in a couple weeks as well. And we'll see. Again, under
Yeah.
pressure, is that swing going to hold up? We look at somebody like a Rickie Fowler that it's taken him 2 years to rebuild his game and rebuild his
Right.
swing. Came out
Major
looking like a
moves though.
different player. Yeah, major moves, and we don't really know all in all. We've been able to notice that JT's been working on some things. We
Yeah.
don't know, however, how drastic that is. If that's major swing change thoughts, we've been looking at Jordan Spieth as well. Him and
Yeah.
that over exaggerated, practice swing for a couple of years as well.
Yeah.
Who the fuck knows? I mean, he could catch lightning in the bottle. He could have just gone back to the drawing board over these last couple of weeks and said, "What I was trying out just doesn't work. Why did I need to
Doesn't work.
change? Why did I
Yeah.
need to change things? Playing at the club is a little bit different, even though, down in Florida, you can get some pretty competitive games in. But again, you never know. And I think, it's good that he's going to get some reps in before the Ryder
Yeah.
Cup. That's awesome. If that opportunity wasn't there, I think it'd be a little bit scarier. Hopefully
Yeah.
he and, Zach Johnson have had some conversations in the background to really
Yeah.
nail down where he is with his game.
And that's a pertinent point, Z, for sure. But again, like, I'm a optimistic realist. So like I still see the light in JT. I still think, like I said, I still think he's trending the right way. Yes, he's missed some cuts, but at the end of the day, when his game was looking good in the last couple of weeks before the playoffs started, before he barely missed it by one spot, again, just on the precipice of some things, I still think he's going to be more positive than negative. That's just me, but
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very, very good point for sure.
And it's not like they have to roll him out there for every single part of it, right? They can
Right.
they can
He has a bad
selectively,
first match, then you kind of put him to the side, and
yeah,
just make
yeah.
sure you take care of business on that solo.
You can hide some people. One
Yeah,
thing that we were talking about earlier that I want to double down on the Cam Young pick and maybe why he also didn't make it, despite a solid last couple of years of golf, is that he also can run a little bit hot. You've seen him have some struggles with his emotions on the course, and nothing crazy, nothing
right.
like early years of John Rahm, but you can see that frustration. And again, you're also trying to look at this from not necessarily only how people are playing as an individual, but how they fit in that team room. And there is
Agreed.
clearly a trend of these kind of late 30s guys that probably all played around each other as juniors and are familiar with each other and have a camaraderie. There doesn't seem to be a lot of them outside of that. So I think it fits right. Again,
Yeah,
double and tripling down on the JT thing is that he has to perform or he's going to get the heat. Um, and
yeah,
there could be major consequences going forward to how that shakes out. For him and Zach Johnson. It's also very interesting that these captains, when you look over even on the European side, the Luke Donalds and the Zach Johnson, right? They're still in their playing days and still trying to grind
right.
it out on
Young.
tour. It's still so it's very interesting. You're not talking about guys that are, way outside of their playing days and not competitive, or at least trying to be competitive at this point. So,
Yeah,
the closeness is an interesting aspect, right? So I don't know what works there, right? Does it make sense to have guys that are still in the locker room week in and week out, seeing how guys interact and play? Or is it better to have some level of that separation? Some older guys who have been in those
yeah,
Ryder Cup wars. Do you pick a guy like a Jim Furyk who's playing on the Champions Tour and isn't as close to it anymore? Doesn't really compete on the PGA Tour anymore, and is fully dedicated himself. Who knows? We don't know what the formula is going to look like, but we're seeing similar aspects on both teams. And again, we'll see how things pan out, especially next Monday is when Luke Donald will be making his captain's picks. I think we have one more confirmation. They have 4 guys selected: John
they have
Rahm,
4 guys.
Rory McIlroy, Tyrrell hadn't made it in this past week, and then
Hmm.
Victor Hovland. So he's got a couple more. Actually, you know what? I think Robert McIntyre might have already automatically qualified. It's not official, but it
Yeah,
looks like that's going to be the case. And then you have,
yeah,
a handful of picks. So based on travel schedule, and we talked about going live because Sunday's not happening on Monday, I think it'll be a good correlation for us to do this again on next Monday on the Labor Day holiday. Talk about the picks from Luke Donald and really get into it, and then start doing some comparison. It's a month out, but I don't know, man. I'm getting kind of hyped about what we're going to experience here.
yeah. I mean, I'm always good and always ready to go for Ryder Cup. So I'm excited about it. Yeah, and just another point about the captains. That's a very good thing to bring up because ZJ, like, I mean, like at one point you could think if he was playing good enough this year, he could have tried to pick himself because he's still playing. Now don't get me wrong. I wouldn't do that if I was Zach Johnson, but
Bro, that would
people
be a
got
straight
pride.
mutiny. That'd be a straight
But I mean,
mutiny.
it's the same
Playing
thing with
captain that's
Luke
not playing
Donald,
that well or
though.
average. No.
Right. But it's the same thing with Luke Donald. If he would have actually picked up his game and been playing more so than watching and scouting, it just might have been something to think about. But also, you got to think about who these guys as vice captains are. These guys, vice captains, are the same age as them too. I mean, Steve Stricker, a few years older than him. Jim Furyk, he's in the mix. I'm pretty sure he's a vice captain. And then I think, man, off the top of my head, I can't remember who the third and fourth were, but Zach Johnson has 4 vice captains.
I'm trying to pull it up real quickly. Yeah, but there's 5.
Yeah,
On
but
both
I like
sides.
your point though about being detached from it, because I feel like Freddie Couple, he got the scouting report. He's detached enough, but also still connected. Because who did he play his practice rounds with? Tiger and JT. So he still got a leg in there. Like, yo, what y'all seeing this year? Who y'all seeing? Who's actually playing for real? Because that's all you really. I mean, it's an eye test too, as well as the stats going. Because them guys didn't have Freddie Couples is not going to the analytics. I'm just telling you that now. He's not going.
No, he's the eye test,
Who's
man.
Who's number 1 in Tee to Green? Ain't nobody. Freddie Couples. Come on now. Come on, bro. Paul McGinley, all them guys. Ian Woosnam. The fuck is that? They're not going for that.
They're old school.
Anyways.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we just wanted to pop on, give it a few minutes, talk about the hot topic of the day, because I think it's been anticipated, and I think there were a lot of questions, for a couple of those picks, right? Again, Brooks Koepka being number 1, and would JT, despite his play, actually make it in? So the questions have been answered on the U.S. side. We have a full 12. I think, top 8, top 10, solid, right? A couple of questions still need to be answered, but next week we're going to see the Euros. I'm highly anticipating kind of how they round out their team. I'm excited again about where this is going to be going. Thinking of blowout a couple of weeks ago, I think it's going to be pretty well contested, and we're going to have one of the best Ryder Cups, despite all the concerns and people saying that it's not really a valid contest anymore due to the exclusion of certain names that are on the Live tour. But I think we're getting some good golf, no doubt.
Right.
So Bearded Bros Golf Show, special edition, real life. Got to get my ass back to work after this short lunch break. I'm Rod.
And I'm Marcus.
Catch y'all on the next one.
Later, folks.